Okay, so I wanted to actually have a video, but of course I couldn't figure out how to do it this week. So you have a picture of me and you have the sound of my voice, so I hope this goes okay. So I wanted to look at uh, what is his point when he is alluding to the Pilgrim's Progress with the subtitle of Oliver Twist, The Parish Boy's Progress. And I looked first at the commonalities between the two stories. So they both have protagonists. They're both progressing through a number of trials, right? So, and I think while I'm looking at this, I'm thinking, and what came to me is that I think it's important to keep in mind that at our core, when it really comes down to it, that people really only have the choice of how to respond to situations and not necessarily what situations they're responding to. So, and even if they do, the question still remains, do they maintain their integrity or do they allow themselves to be corrupted? Right? So I'm looking at Christian and I'm looking at Oliver and how they respond to tribulation. So I looked at the two characters. I have not read The Pilgrim's Progress for quite some time, so I had to go back and go over the summary and kind of refamiliarize myself with the story. So forgive me for any lapse if I get something wrong. Feel free to point it out to me. But basically, what I understand is that Christian he's a grown man, he has a family, he has a wife, he has, I believe, 4 kids, and he is convinced that the city he lives in is going to be destroyed by divine fire, and he leaves the city in hopes of finding salvation, heavenly salvation, right? So then there is Oliver, who is this little boy who really has nothing to lose but literally but his life. He has nothing. He's seeking salvation, but he's seeking a different kind of salvation. He's not seeking that heavenly salvation. He's seeking a family. He's seeking a peaceful life. He wants those things. And I thought it's sort of ironic that Christian already had the family and he had a home and he left those things, and those are the things that Oliver really wanted. So Oliver starts his search for his salvation when he runs away from his apprenticeship with the Undertaker. And with each of them, that's the first decision that they make that really pertains, as I see it, to the story. And I have to say that just with that one decision, Oliver looks to me like he has a little more integrity. But I was also taking into consideration that as I understand it, in Victorian England, it was a very progressive time, and ideas were changing, and so I can see how, you know, religion may not be as important to some of the people who were living at the time, and especially the poor and the working class. I mean, they were really trying to survive, right? So I can see how uh, that aspect of life maybe took something of a backseat when perhaps earlier in time, in 1637, when Pilgrim's Progress was written, still they were trying to surviving, but maybe not as progressive, maybe not as many ideas, and so that religion was much more important. And I went and looked at, I was looking at Bible passages actually, and I found Matthew 10:37, where he says, and I believe this is the King James version, that he that loveth father or mother more than me is not worthy of me, and he that loveth son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. And I thought that a passage like that in 1637 probably going to hold more weight. So maybe Christian wasn't such a bad guy. Maybe he was just had, inside him the values that people had at the time. Maybe he wasn't just running away from his family. I don't know, but that's my idea. So back to this idea that the only real power man has is to respond to how they respond to their circumstances. That to me seems to be the most important message in both of the stories. Certainly in Oliver Twist, it seems to be the point. So that Oliver, he seems to have had life's vicissitudes just sort of thrust upon him. He's an orphan. He was basically dragged around and said, "You're going to live here. You're going to do this work." And Christian, it seems like he should have been able to just turn around and go home, but I think that he really believed that he had to leave his home, he had to leave his family to find the salvation. And there is in both of the stories an account of how each character responded to circumstances and, potential corruption. So the two published 159 years apart. And even though Dickens clearly meant for the reader to consider the Pilgrim's Progress in relation to Oliver Twist, what I think is really interesting is the timelessness of the idea. So, how people respond to the invitation of corruption. What kind of person does it take to maintain their integrity? That's what Dickens, I think, wanted us to look at. This, idea is never going to go away. Integrity versus corruption is part of the human condition. So we can take the story, we can take either story and look at it as a reflection of ourselves and how we make our choices. I think that's what Dickens was trying to relate to, at the time he was writing it, what was his contemporary audience. And the point, as I see the overall, the point is to make us look at ourselves and determine how we are going to respond to and whether or not we are going to give into corruption and or sin. Do we maintain our integrity, or do we allow ourselves to be influenced and corrupted? And in the end, if we really are judged, then how would we judge ourselves?